I mean, look, the bottom line is a good degree of the information that you're getting on Reddit is wrong.
That's all that I know. Foot on the gas, 155 on the road. You could be a friend of me, an enemy. Keep that same old energy, cause I know I'm in my element. Ooh, yeah. I'm in my element. Ooh, yeah. I'm in my element. I'm in my element. Ooh, yeah. I'm in my element. Ooh,
what's up, everybody? It's Joy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on nootropics, on testosterone, and on male performance. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified of all the stuff that's coming out. We extended the Torque 30% off special, so I moved it up to 50 more bottles. We already blew through our 200, so right now our loss is your gain, 30% off the Torque stack. Coupon code is 30TORQUE. Do it at livecortex.com. We won't run another special on tour for at least another 4 or 5 months. All right, so right into it. Yeah, look, the definitive statement is Reddit is the most misinformation source around nootropics and testosterone that perhaps exists on the internet. Now, this doesn't mean that there isn't good information on Reddit, so I want to preface this video with saying that there are some good anecdotes that are useful, obviously, and there are also some good instructions on either TRT or nootropics and otherwise on Reddit. I want to make that clear. But as you get deeper into the thousands of, posts and threads on the nootropics subreddit and on the testosterone subreddit, and you have a great understanding of physiology, then you're going to come to notice a few alarming things. Number one, the parroted regurgitation phenomenon. This is a phenomenon of people repeating things that they may have heard somewhere else or that were socially acceptable, but that just aren't true. I explained this in the video that I recently did, which you might want to check out, about adrafinil being liver toxic. People repeat that over and over again. Turns out it isn't true. Other people will say things like, hey, the minimum dose on aniracetam to be effective is 750 milligrams. That's not true either. Then other people on the TRT forums will go, hey, subcutaneous injection is superior to intramuscular injection, or intramuscular is superior to subcutaneous injection, right? Both of which aren't necessarily true, right? There's nuance that you have to understand. Reddit is basically a large-scale N=1 reporting system. And these are the issues that you want to look out for, which, make Reddit, though sometimes useful, one of the largest reservoirs for misinformation that exists on the internet. All right, so let's get into some examples. So I'll take you right to the nootropics subreddit. There's a thread that is titled Safest Way to Take L-Tyrosine Long Term, in which a user goes, hey, I've been using L-Tyrosine for a few months on and off, but last week I used it quite a few days, 500 milligrams each day. And on Friday, I had a pretty bad anxiety attack. Also had Shilajit 400 milligrams, rhodiola 200 milligrams, and phosphatidylcholine 100 milligrams. So already this dude's stack is a little convoluted. Yeah, Shilajit has some dopaminergic properties. Rhodiola largely serotonergic and adaptogenic properties. Anyway, he goes, other than that, I feel it gives me good motivation for the whole day, usually on the days when I take it. Could it have been the L-tyrosine giving me anxiety? Now, let's just jump to, I'll explain what I think is happening here, but let's just jump to one of the responses to illustrate this point. One response was, I take 1 gram daily every morning and have done so for 6 months now. No issues at all. He goes, is there any research supporting toxicity or that it would cause a panic attack? ? I ask because as an amino acid, the odds of this seem low. My guess would be that you have some underlying anxiety that was spiked by something unrelated. So let me explain what's wrong with that answer. So first of all, I take 1 gram daily every morning. I'm done to it for 6 months. He's basically somewhat conflating his N=1 with what this dude should experience, but mostly just saying, here's my experience, take it or leave it. Then he makes a statement like, as an amino acid, the odds of tyrosine causing anxiety because it's an amino acid are low. This is not true. Tyrosine is an adrenergic compound, right? So in its process of converting from tyrosine through tyrosine hydroxylase to L-DOPA and then L-DOPA to dopamine, it's also going to convert to noradrenaline. And, there is an upper tolerable threshold for noradrenaline that people have, which if it's too high is definitely going to give you anxiety and maybe make you have a panic attack. That's both because it is supporting thyroid hormone production and because it's, adrenergic. So that's the issue with this one particular response. If this guy reads this and goes, it's an amino acid, that's it. It can't cause anxiety. Why would it? It's an amino acid, right? That's sort of I don't know if misnomer is the right word, bit of a logical fallacy. That's just not the criteria with which you would want to judge whether or not tyrosine can give you anxiety. Oh, it's an amino acid. It's very bland, very nebulous, not detailed enough. You got to look at what it's doing, and yes, it's adrenergic, and it's going to convert to, noradrenaline. But another user goes, from my experience, it's definitely the rhodiola. okay, you're giving your experience, but then he goes, scrap it. But here's where you really have to be careful, right? Because actually rhodiola has some positive effects on serotonin metabolism and serotonin receptor sites, which would potentiate the effect of your innate inborn serotonin, which would really reduce the potential for you to have an anxiety attack while you're taking tyrosine. So if that user takes this advice and removes the rhodiola, chances are his panic attack or his anxiety is going to be substantially worse, because now he doesn't have a buffer in there to sort of slow that response down. The question was, is there a safe way to take tyrosine long term? The real answer to that is, like as with most other things, yes, but you're going to have to monitor a few things. I think predominantly you should monitor free T3, so that's like active form of thyroid while you're taking tyrosine. Is that like substantially going up, or is it inching upward, and does that correlate with your anxiety? Or bring in something like picamilin, which is just more of a straight shot of kind of bio-usable or brain-usable GABA, which then definitely will have a positive effect on the inhibition of some of that adrenergic response, which will tone down or eliminate some of the anxiety. All right, another example, right, on the testosterone subreddit, where the predominant discussion, by the way, is about TRT and TRT protocols. So like those of you who go on TRT or going on TRT or thinking about it, you should definitely go there. There's a lot of good information, but a lot of misinformation. And there's a thread titled Anastrozole, When and How to Know, where a user goes, so I ordered this stuff along with my test in HCG. He's referring to anastrozole, and I'll get to what that is in a second. But the question is, how do I know if I need it? When I did my labs, my estrogen was already low. So how does one know when or even if they need to take this? He goes, I mean, my second labs are 3 months out, so is there something that would let me know I need it, hopefully before I have giant man boobs, LOL. All right, so anastrozole is an aromatase inhibitor. It's a drug that will reduce estrogen. Depending on the dose, you're looking at a 70% or so reduction in circulating estrogens in like 24 hours or so. That's depending on the dose, though. Often used in conjunction with testosterone replacement therapy for some guys because, no matter what they do, whether it's changing frequency or lowering their TRT dose, like they can't get estrogen in the right range where they have libido and sex drive and sensation, that, they may have to bring in it at sparing doses, low doses, measured doses, carefully monitoring labs, in the meantime to get their, their numbers in the right range. Now, there's a very particular range for good sexual function when you're on TRT as it relates to testosterone and estrogen. But here's the real point, right? A user responds to this and goes, pin 2 times a week, no AI needed. Then he goes, what's your doses? So basically what he's saying is, hey, look, if you just pin testosterone twice a week, you won't need an aromatase inhibitor. This is not true. I mean, it's actually just wrong. All right, so let's get into this. First of all, the guy, the OP, the original poster goes, his labs for estrogen were already low. First of all, once you start, administering TRT, that's going to change, right? Some of that testosterone via these aromatase enzymes, which are in your testicles and in your fat tissue and elsewhere, are going to convert to testosterone's going to convert to estrogen. Some of it is. So that's going to change the lab markers right away. But secondly, that user that responded is doing number 2 of the egregious errors that I explained before, which is conflating his experience with, the potential experience of this original poster, and also parroting what's socially acceptable in the TRT community, at least in large swaths of people, which you would think means it's true, right? Definitely not. And this is sort of an issue. And then number 3, he's parroting a long-standing regurgitation that you can avoid an aromatase inhibitor on TRT based on frequency of injections and dose, which is also not true. Now, that can be true for some people. Some people can avoid aromatase inhibitors on TRT, and that's depending on how they're aromatizing, how much body fat they intake, how much cruciferous vegetables they eat, the kind of things that help you clear estrogens from the system faster. In which case, perhaps you won't have an excessive estrogen load, and with TRT, your libido, your erection quality, and your mood, and your sleep, and all that stuff is going to be dialed in perfectly. And look, there is, some convincing research, but also like a lot of anecdotals that suggest that if you dose testosterone more frequently, like every other day or even every day, and if you dosed it in subcutaneous injections, then you're going to end up with less estrogen. But those research papers are not set in stone. They take a certain amount of people and conclude this outcome. And then the anecdotals are also not everyone as well. People metabolize testosterone differently. People aromatize the testosterone to estrogen differently than other people. And you'll have guys, so here's one of the major points, you'll have guys that take this advice and they go, all I need to do is either lower my dose or pin more frequently. In other words, inject more frequently. And then they go to an everyday injection state of injecting testosterone, and their testosterone might fluctuate a little bit. The estrogen may fluctuate a little bit, but largely it all stays right around that same number. But it doesn't change the ratio enough, like in the testosterone to estrogen ratio, where then they get an alleviation of their libido problems or erection problems or sleep problems or whatever. Like you can have guys that are not insulin resistant. You know, what are some of the things? Again, eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables, or doing cardio, have next to no body fat. They're sitting under 10%. They're injecting every day. They've switched to subcutaneous, and their libido is still shit, and their erection quality is still poor. And that is because, for whatever reason, other than these controllable factors, like, you know, their testosterone to estrogen ratio for them is going to need to be a little bit different in order for them to have like some of the predominant positive effects of TRT. And then they're sitting there going like, well, something's wrong with me, or something else is wrong, or what is wrong? Like they won't look at the one thing that, you know, established endocrinology has been saying for 50 years, which is, yeah, you might need to take a chemical that lowers some of your testosterone's conversion to estrogen. I know guys that have to take very, very minute amounts. Nothing else that we can do, or nothing else that they do is going to allow them to achieve the best libido, EQ, and, you know, subjective feels on testosterone, other than like a 0.125 milligram dose of anastrozole once every 10 days. In some cases, not even frequently, just kind of an as-needed basis, microdosing the stuff as on an as-needed basis. And then libido's back, erection quality's back. They fucking feel awesome. They have no anxiety around women, and they're like firing on all cylinders. So that's just one example of don't take information on Reddit and go like, this is information that I must follow, and what's socially acceptable now I've got to follow it because everybody else says that this is the case. All right, so back to Reddit. Yeah, Reddit is a great source for N=1. It's perhaps the best N=1 reporting system on the internet, and it's very valuable in that regard. But otherwise, people are giving their individual experiences, conflating their experiences with the experiences that they think you'll have. There's a lot of misinformation that's being parroted and regurgitated, like adrafinil is liver toxic, and I went and deep dived that just the other day, and turns out it isn't. There's no literature to support that. Oh, and again, like the idea that tyrosine, just because it's an amino acid, is not going to cause anxiety or has a low chance of doing that. Well, it's adrenergic. It has a great probability to do that if you're dosing it too high. Okay, so understand what Reddit is for what Reddit is. Use it accordingly, but experiment wisely. Appreciate you being with me. As I said in the beginning, yeah, I bumped it up. So we got another 50 bottles to sell of Torque at 30% off. The coupon code is 30Torque. I mean, this is mental stimulation, a lot of mental energy, good degree of motivation, but also functional computing power. Like, you're going to notice Torque when you take it for most folks. Link is in the description of this video to go buy a bottle. Just go buy a bottle. The stuff is awesome. But if you use the coupon code 30Torque right now, you're going to get it for 30% off. Like, big discount, livecortex.com. Other stack Cortex, you guys know the deal. That's dopamine centric. So if you want that kind of motivated energy to be very productive, get Cortex. And if you need to hire me for coaching on nootropics, on dialing in your testosterone protocol, or getting on TRT, questions you have related to your blood work, energy issues, long-standing problems, you can do that at livecortex.com. And we recently just added targeted email response consults where you can give me your whole situation, labs and all if you have them, and I will respond with a targeted response as well as protocols to help you solve your issues and reach your goals. You can do that at livecortex.com. Appreciate you being with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you on the next one.
I know I'm in my element, ooh, yeah. I'm in my element, ooh, yeah. I'm in my element, I'm in my element, ooh, yeah. I'm in my element, ooh, yeah. I'm in my element, ooh, yeah. Keep that same energy. I'm in my element.